Hello, Rachel. How are you? You're not sounding good.
No.
How about I motivate you? How about you join me in something? Can you do that?
I'll try.
Now, are you ready to give 3 cheers for cybernetics? Huh? Hip hip,
hip,
hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Cybernetics, baby! So, are you feeling yum yum now after doing that? Give me a yum or a yum yum if you're feeling more yum yum after doing that.
Oh, yum yum.
Excellente. So we are the Yum Yum Podcast, obviously because of the iconic line of dialogue spoken by the very prevalent character in the particular episode we'll be discussing this week, Nan, from Star Trek Discovery. Nan, that legendary character. Nan, the bread. Nan. She said the line yum yum at the end of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. We are nearing the end of Season 2. We're getting closer and closer, but we're not quite there yet on our rewatch. And of course, that's the format. We are rewatching Star Trek Discovery, episode by episode, talking about it, breaking it down, seeing how it goes on a second viewing. So if you have not seen Star Trek Discovery before, there will be spoilers. There won't be too many for Season 3, as that has, airing-wise, that's still fairly new, but there may be some minor little things from that mentioned, but mainly Season 2 is going to be completely spoiled. So if you haven't, that's it. We told you. So, Rachel, what is the episode of discussion for this one? I've already forgotten the number of the episode we're up to. I know we're near the end, right? We've got like 5 more left.
We're in Season 2, we're Episode 9, Project Daedalus.
Episode 9, yeah.
Episode 9, yeah. The Discovery crew infiltrates Section 31's headquarters, and suspicions arise that the crew may have a traitor in their midst. Meanwhile, Burnham tries to help Spock, but her efforts don't go as planned.
So this is Episode 9, Project Daedalus, which comes in at a 7 point something, I'm pretty sure. Like, this is a well-regarded enough episode. This isn't
7.9. It's almost an 8.
We're no longer in the lows of the lows or the highs of the highs. We're back in the mid of the mids of the show. So Project Daedalus. Let's talk our relationship with it. When we first saw it, how we felt. I remember this one being that episode that I saw and went, "Oh, okay. That was an episode that happened, and that's my opinions on it. It happened."
Yeah, it annoys me more than it annoys you, I think.
It's a great... This one, for the moment being speaking, I appreciate this episode from an analytical point of view in terms of this would be a great one to show in a writing class to highlight how you can easily fumble the ball when it comes to establishing a minor character being prevalent in your story. You can use this as an example in both how you can operate it successfully and operate it in a way that it fails, because there are moments within this episode where I appreciated the characterization that was put towards Arium, but for the most part it falls flat on its face, because from the very beginning there is this overwhelming sense of, oh, they're focusing on this character, that must mean that this character is not going to be around anymore, because Star Trek Discovery has never focused on any of the minor characters like they do with Arium in this episode. They always focus on Michael, they always focus on Saru, Pike, they always focus on our main people. This isn't like old Star Trek, where you'll have an episode where you've now just met a character and his name's Reg Barkley and we've never met him before, and at the end of the episode he's alive and we'll get to see him again for more episodes. No, this isn't that type of show. And this isn't just a problem with Star Trek, but this is a problem with a lot of TV shows is you know from the beginning, oh, since they're focusing their time on this minor character, that must mean that this minor character is going to leave, whether they leave or they outright die. So it fails in that regard because you predict it, but it also fails in the major regard of it acts like it does with Hugh a lot. It acts like you should care about this character, Arium, who's been there practically from day one, but this is the episode where she leaves and I've only just found out what she is. Like, she's not a robot. We've only just found that out. In the same episode that we're going to wrap up her thing, yet she's been there from the very beginning. So it fails in that regard. But to give it some positives, it did have little things here and there that if they kept her character around and kept exploring her character, what I'm saying is they had stuff there to build upon before they tore it all down. Because you could have built her up and then later on tear her down like you do in this one. Or if they were building her up throughout this season, that would have been better. But the way that they built her up throughout the season is they just keep saying her name a lot. They keep saying, oh, you're brilliant a lot, and then having her get infected so that now we pay attention to her because now we know she's doing evil shit. But that doesn't translate as enjoyable character building, which this episode actually did put in, but only so that the punch could hit harder in the episode that she dies in. So that's how I feel about this whole entire episode. You said you feel more negatively towards it. Was that how you felt the first time round, or is that kind of magnified now that we're rewatching the show and having to think about it more critically?
It's the way that I remember feeling about it the first time. I was very irritated on the first watch, and I was very irritated on the second watch. Because it thinks that it's done more work than it has. And that was pissing me off in terms of the Arium stuff. Because the music says that I'm meant to be feeling these things. And the editing is telling me that this is the way that I'm feeling. And this is the way that this situation should be affecting me. And it's just not. And they do the same thing with the Spock stuff as well. And I just got angry at feeling manipulated during this episode.
I mean, it is a fair complaint. The episode is very manipulative at its core. This is another one, example-wise, you can show into your writer's class of how you can overplay your hand of manipulation of the audience. Because obviously when you're telling a story, when you're writing a script, when you're constructing this narrative, you have tools of manipulation that you're going to use against the audience. And the tools of manipulation, the varying degrees of how you use them, depends on the piece, depends on the tone of the piece. There are some episodes of TNG that you could say are far more manipulative, far more overblown and dramatic, and far more cheesy, but perhaps that works in the context of that episode or that series. Or maybe it doesn't. There are examples where they overplay their hands in other Star Treks with manipulation, and ones where they play it just perfectly. Like, for instance, I always bring this up, but again, it's because I think it's a great episode with a divisive character. The episode Half Alive, where Deanna Troy's mother, Loxana Troy, falls in love with a guy who has to kill himself because he's reached the age of 60. That episode is very manipulative. It's very manipulative. It's similar to this one. We've just met this guy. We don't know anything about him. We're going to learn all this stuff about him, and then he's going to be dead at the end of the episode. And it is a little bit different because we've just met that guy in that episode. We've known Arium. We know she's been there a lot. We don't know her. But the difference is in the tools of manipulation area. The biggest one is the way that the TNG script manipulated me was I actually cared about Timmerson. I don't give a shit about Arium. As much as I like to say they have interesting character building stuff, they never come to fruition. While Timmerson in TNG, they have not just interesting character building stuff, but he actually is an interesting character. And we get to see that through and through, even down to the fact of the matter is, in that episode, he has a daughter that comes along the ship, and she's so good in that one scene that they said, we need to bring that actress back because that's how impressive that performance was, and impressive what that character did in that episode. And she's the antagonistic force minorly, that they wrote the character of Ensign Rowe just to bring that actress back. Ariam, the most interesting thing we learn about her is the fact that she was a human at one point, and that she's not a robot, but some cybernetic being who has limited memory capacity. And that's the interesting thing I learned about her. I don't know anything about her actual personality. I don't know anything about her fears, her goals, her desires. They can tell me all they like, that she's really good at playing this game. But did we ever even see her play the game that they're talking about? No. They don't demonstrate her character. They tell us her character. And that's a manipulation that is very prevalent in this one that, of course, you did not like, Rachel. You were rolling your eyes quite a lot when we were watching the episode, and at one point you said, "Stop telling me, show me."
I mean, I'm not playing Caught with you anymore.
Why?
You know why? It's the same reason I am not playing with her anymore either.
Tilly, you memorized every possible gambit.
No, I have not. Yes, I have. And so is Ariam. True.
I feel like those tools of manipulation are against me, because they are not things that I enjoy, especially in this context, because it feels forced.
Yeah.
And yes, manipulation and emotional manipulation is part of the plot of all media. It is designed to make you feel a certain way. And sometimes it's for a particular goal, and sometimes it's incidental. Like, not everybody's gonna like Funny Games, because that's a film that is meant to make you feel uncomfortable. And like the director says, that if you enjoy it, then you're basically an awful human being, because it's designed to not be enjoyed.
Yeah. And that's a divisive one to use as an example, but of course that's a hyperbolic example.
Yes.
Just like how I use the Half a Life example of very different, but they hit a lot of the similar beats. What is there that you do like about this episode? Is there anything that you actually enjoy about this? Because although we've had a lot of stinkers that we've watched through, I have to say, sitting next to you throughout this episode, this is the one that, and I may have said this in the past, but maybe you keep topping yourself, but this is the one where I really got the emanating feeling of pure joylessness while watching it. You had no joy in you when you watched it, so I'm curious to see if there was actually anything you found positive within the episode.
I like that Spock just says that Sarek is a bad dad. And I like his line that I disappoint him, he disappoints me, the sun sets, a new day begins. I genuinely liked that line. Did not like that scene, but I liked that singular line.
And that's it? That's all you can conjure up from Project Daedalus as something you liked? It's okay if there's nothing else. Like I said, I think this is one of the most daunting experiences watching.
I liked Nan wearing red.
They've already shown that before.
Yeah, I liked her suit. It appears again.
So you have nothing.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I didn't mind some of the little character stuff with Ariam. I like the idea of her having limited memory capacity. I like the idea of her being this cybernetic human thing, even though timeline-wise I don't care for it. But sci-fi-wise, I think it could have been interesting. You could have explored a lot of stuff. It makes me think RoboCop very much. And you could have explored, but again, this is a could have, so this isn't actually a positive, but it's a something. You could have explored the kind of darker elements that come along with that, especially in a show that wants to be darker, not just lighting wise, but thematically. You could have explored darker elements of the what is it to be human aspect there, because we've often seen the what is it to be human from people who are not human or only half human, like Spock. Wouldn't it be interesting to have the what is it to be human aspect from someone who is human but has been turned into more of a machine than a human? Again, you could say that's retreading Seven of Nine's kind of idea, but you could still explore that, but we don't get that. The other thing I do like about the episode is I enjoy the bit in which Arium rips the thing off of Nan's face and then throws her across the room. The way that Control taking over, Arium neutralizing the biggest threat in the room effectively and quickly was nice. It was also great because you have a woman with a thing on her face. The first thing you do is take the thing off of her face violently. That will solve the problem. I enjoyed that.
And she double-checked that was the breathing apparatus earlier in the episode.
So it's a setup payoff.
I was going to say that it's telegraphed ahead of time
Oh,
rather than foreshadowing.
definitely.
But that's just it's a matter of semantics and perspective.
I'd rather, I don't know. And the only other minor thing that I got enjoyment out of in the episode, or something positive, is I don't like that they have holograms, but I do like the fact that they admit that they have holograms, so they're actually exploring what the technology of holograms can do by showing that you can doctor images with holograms. I don't like them being here, but if you're going to have it,
Do
expand
something.
upon what you got. It's not the first time we've seen that in Star Trek, but within the timeline, they react to it like this is a surprising element, and that I'm fine with that. And I like that they expand upon that, especially in a show in which you have ludicrously well-designed, very, very complex technology that they never expand upon. Like, I was thinking in this episode, the spore drive's broken, right? They're trying to fix the spore drive. And it's weird to me that only in that one Mirrorverse storyline in which they went over there and the Mirrorverse were using the spore technology for power instead of navigation, an engine. That's the only time in the show in which it's ever explored that you could use this limitless technology for, well, limitless technology. And this is an example, even minorly, of them having a piece of technology in the show and exploring different little things you can do with it. Because I always enjoy seeing that. Like, that's why I love Star Trek Voyager. I love holograms, and Star Trek Voyager kept expanding upon and exploring different sci-fi ideas you can do with it.
This proposal of yours, to be made of what? What did you call it?
ECH, Emergency Command Hologram.
In principle, it's an interesting idea. A backup captain in case I'm incapacitated and the command structure breaks down. But expanding your program would take months of work.
The lives of the crew may depend on it someday.
I'm sitting here around the campfire to hear your legendary tales about what you don't like about this episode and why it rubs you up so raw.
Okay.
I got my marshmallow here.
Okay.
Over the campfire, waiting to hear Mama Rachel's scary stories about Project Daedalus.
Okay. So remember that Admiral Cornwall is a psychologist.
I do remember.
And she essentially uses a lie detector test.
Yeah.
I was giving her credit for a millisecond because she says, well, no, like it is reliable, but, you know, and then she paused and I was just like, is she going to acknowledge that, like, you know, lie detectors can always be fooled?
Yes.
Because you can always, you can always trick them in one way or another.
Oh, but it's the future.
It's the future, but it would make more sense if that test was still fallible, because it relies on the person believing the lie.
Well, but
or tricking it in other ways,
she
like
does.
pinching and
She
stuff.
does say that though. She says a line that's along. She says he's telling the truth, or at least he believes he is.
Yes.
That's how they get away from the critique that you want to make. That line exists just so that whatever you're going to say is nullified.
But
then they go on to be like, oh, but it's 100% foolproof and it's amazing and it's this amazing piece of technology that for some reason Section 31 didn't use on Spock. They were just going to drill into his head.
is the test you administered inaccurate?
No.
The test is 100% accurate, but so is this. And she shows what we later find out to be the doctored footage of Spock attacking them.
And as we find out throughout the episode, that was doctored and it was fake.
Yes.
And she's so stupid that she said it's 100% true because it was sent from the place that
Yeah.
it happened, not that
We know that it's definitely footage from the place where they say that this happened, so it can't be doctored.
Is that how fact-checking doctored images work? Oh, well, it was sent from Ryan's house, so that must mean it's true.
It happened at Ryan's house because it was sent from Ryan's house, obviously.
Look, Ryan sent in footage of aliens landing in his driveway. It came from Ryan's address when he mailed it to us, so that must mean that aliens landed in Ryan's driveway. It can't be fake. It can't be an After Effects image that he's put in, because we can look at the footage and it's at Ryan's house. So it's true.
Yep. Okay.
That's the logic there, by the way, people.
Yeah. I still, even though they try and put a patch over it, I have an issue with the lie detector supposedly being 100% accurate, because it's been proven over and over again that it's not infallible, and anything that is based off that can be fooled in some way or another. So you cannot go from that assumption, because as she points out, it could be a lie and he just believes it. But they continue to act on the assumption that he was not lying, so that is the truth as it happened. And they do the same with the footage.
Yeah, well, it's hard to believe things. You gotta have faith.
That's not the Spock I know. It must have been doctored.
I verified the source codes. The images come straight from Psych.
So you're reading off your notes.
Mm-hmm.
These little details, these little specific moments. Are these the type of things that are tripping you up with the episode? Obviously, we're going to talk about the big moments like Ariam's death and Section 31's plan and control and all that. But are these the little things that niggle at you?
My hatred for this episode is much like a snowball rather than an avalanche, because it's all of these little things, and as it builds momentum as the episode goes on and on and on, that I start either like going like, oh, whatever, I'll let that little thing slide, and then something else happens and I'm just like, no, I can't get on board with this.
You have a larger tolerance for the episode we did previously, if memory serves. That's the type of one that you can withstand more than me.
Yeah.
So I take it as you suffer more by a death of 1,000 cuts.
Yes.
While I cannot take being stabbed through. You know what I'm saying there? You do not like it more so. These little things, and they build upon each other. While me, I can somewhat tolerate those more than you. I still suffer too, but an episode like If Memory Serves, or Point of Light, or Into the Forest I Go, or The Wolf Inside, where it's as if a door has been slammed directly into my face and my nose has broken, I will be on the floor crying in agony from it more so than you would, where you go, ow, my nose, but then you just move forward and they go, ow, my nose. knows. But if you just have just little cuts, you're suffering, and that's what this episode really was. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. It was just little things, and to the point in which an average viewer, who's not looking at this as critically as we are, not looking at it as specifically as we are, not even when I was first time viewing it, may not be affected as heavily by these little weird choices or little weird sayings and lines of dialogue or inaccuracies or convoluted natured plot lines and all that kind of stuff, or jokes. Because it's just a numbing effect after a while when you're first watching it. But when we look at it critically, you just notice there's so many holes here.
Yeah. So I would rather watch an episode where I feel like they were trying to do something and failed than an episode where it feels like nobody is trying.
And do you think this is an episode where nobody is trying?
Nobody's trying hard enough. I can see that they're attempting to do things and the decisions make sense. But I feel like the decisions that they have made insult my intelligence as a viewer.
Right. Because I see this very similarly. I do see that they are trying to push forward, finally, the season-long plot. So this is the episode, finally, in which Control is set up as the antagonist. We're 9 episodes in, people, by the way. Took them 9 episodes to get an antagonist, by the way. So factor that in for a start. An antagonist who's the reason for the whole season is happening. Just remember that. And that's fine. You can introduce your antagonist later as a reveal. But we haven't had that overwhelming sense, even upon the rewatch, that there was an antagonist. It's just things have been happening. Oh, there's a red signal over here.
And we know where it ends up.
And we know where it ends up, too.
So we were paying more attention each time that they casually mention Control. And it feels like they under-explain it so that the reveal isn't spoiled.
Yes. But I agree. This episode is that mishmashy kind of one where obviously people are trying. They've written their scripts, people are acting, and all of it's there, but this is very similar to the episode that set this all up, the Light and Shadows one, where stuff happened, but it's so dull at the same time that all the stupid things and all these little cuts kind of fade away from your brain if you're not paying attention strong enough. Because as we're talking, I briefly looked at my notes and I went, oh fuck, yeah, that was a really dumb thing. And I'd completely forgotten about it because all of these weird little moments just keep happening again and again that you build a tolerance for them to the point in which you just forget those little details. But at the end of the day, when you step back, the episode is built upon all these little details, all these weird little things that they say. The biggest one, the biggest egregious one that I missed upon the first time, and I said, oh, I'm sure if I watch it again, there will be an explanation, which is the transporter.
Mm-hmm.
This episode sets up that the transporter works, that the transporter can beam them out of the area, beam them in. There's nothing interfering with the transporter isn't broken. Everything with the transporter is fine. And you have this big climactic scene at the end in which you gotta eject me into outer space so I can fucking die or I'll kill you. And all I'm thinking of is, well, can't you just transport her into the brig? What's she gonna do in the brig? They've shown that she can't punch through the glass. They've shown that she can't even punch through organic matter like Michael. What's she gonna do? Punch through the fucking shields? Not likely. And I'm sitting there going, where is that? And the first time, I had kind of forgotten about that because it kind of all these weird moments just kind of blur together, so I didn't think of it. And then later, after watching it the first time, I thought about it and went, oh, they must have explained it. They must have had some kind of line or something. So when I was watching it today, I was listening out as carefully as I could, and I did not encounter the moment in this rewatching of them saying anything in regards to it. It just, they never do it. So the scene can play out. And that encapsulates this whole episode, is just that kind of mentality of we'll set up the possibility that we could do something, but we're just not going to do it, and you're going to not remember that we set up the possibility. So, and that's the episode. The episode. Like, Arium, she's here. She's still not the main character of the episode, though.
Please be careful. Standing by to beam you out.
For me, this episode feels like a scam.
How so, Rachel? What pyramid scheme are they selling us now? The mystery box? I've already got my shitty mystery box. It's sitting right here, festering and smelling up the place. Has been since Lost.
Yeah. No, it feels like a lot of things, but mainly like which cup has the ball in it.
None of them.
Here is Miriam. Miriam is here. Miriam.
Arium. You always call her Miriam.
I don't fucking care. It doesn't fucking matter. I don't fucking care anymore. Fucking war. Beep Boop Lady. Beep Boop Lady is Beep Boop Lady is a different Boop Boop Lady.
Yeah, Beep Boop Lady's the one with the big robot head that only speaks who only spoke in beeps and boops.
Yes.
Remember when the future people in which Arium exists, yet there was a crew member who could only speak in beeps and boops.
Absolutely. Oh. Arium is over here. Arium does this. Don't look over here.
Oh, Nan's looking.
Michael's here. Pay attention. We're gonna... Whoa! Let's look. Where is it gonna end up?
Yeah, and that's...
Oh, wait.
It's a magic trick.
This...
And isn't that the whole point of
it? That gives it too much... It's an awful magic trick. That's because it's like...
Because there's no rabbit. They don't pull out the rabbit out of the hat. That's a mystery box, though, Rachel, isn't it? It's, look, we're going to pull the rabbit out of the hat. But they think, ooh.
It's a crocodile!
No, Rachel, don't be silly. This is how the mystery box works, right? Hey, I'm going to show you how I'm going to pull a rabbit. I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat. Are you excited to see this rabbit get pulled out of my hat? What kind of rabbit? What kind of rabbit's it going to be?
I think it's going to be a big rabbit.
And then look, I got a really tiny hat. How big's the rabbit going to be if I pull it out? And then
it's going to be even bigger.
Rachel, imagine that, but for 13 episodes, and then at the end, they don't pull a rabbit out of the hat, but say, ooh, maybe next time the rabbit will come out. That's how the mystery box works. It's all about the tease, not the details. They can throw a bunch of random details at you to make you think that there's going to be a revelation of sorts, but there isn't, because you just said, oh, look, Arium's over here. Arium's doing that. And I just casually said, and Nan's watching. That was a little detail that the episode kept throwing in there of Nan knew.
Nan's suspicious. That's why Nan is willing to eject her at the end.
But that, and also she ripped her face off and punched her across the room. I mean, I would be willing to eject her into space after doing that. But what that's set up to me is, wouldn't there be a moment in which she would take Pike aside? After all, she is from Pike's crew and she's been assigned security detail. Wouldn't she have a moment where she takes Pike aside and tells her of the suspicions that she has? Or, I don't know, do her job and let the captain know of the current members of crew that are of suspicion? Arium being the one of suspicion, but no, you don't
No, because that doesn't come into later, and that still doesn't make sense. And something that annoys me is that they know that things are still going wrong and Tyler is still locked up.
Exactly. But throughout the whole
description, part of it is the same as last week's episode of the crew has suspicions.
But exactly. But here's the thing. At the first time we see Nan, she's in there looking at Arium under suspicion. So she's already been established before the episode starts via that she's suspicious of her since before the episode starts. And then the episode proceeds and she's seeing her do all this shit. There's not a scene in which she takes Pike aside and says, I have suspicions about Arium, because they want Arium to be in that location at the end. Yeah. They want the thing that you said of, well, that's why Nan ejects her into space. She had her suspicions, but really, you didn't need that. You could just have had, she chucked her into space because Nan's good at her job and she just got her face ripped off, partially.
It needs to be more emotional.
It needs to be, but that's the thing of, like you said, look over here, look over there, what's this happening, what's this happening? Oh, look, we keep cutting to these embarrassing shots of the actress of Nan looking suspiciously around the corridor, around the doorway at what Ariam's doing during the climactic mine sequence. And it leads to nothing, but the anticipation's there. Oh no, is Nan going to figure it out? Oh, I hope Nan figures it out. Oh, hopefully if she figures it out, that means she can stop Ariam before anything truly bad happens, because now we care about Ariam. See, it's that kind of thought process that the show wants to put you in. It wants to manipulate you to think that way, instead of thinking the way of, well, Nan is a security chief. Wouldn't it be professionally prudent at any point for her to have a meeting with Captain Pike and let him know the details of her investigation thus far and make sure that the lead suspect would not go upon the Section 31 intelligence ship with all the supreme data? Wouldn't that be prudent? No, because
the prime suspect is still Tyler.
But
Pike says so, and Michael says, I will prove him innocent.
And she doesn't.
Ryan, you know what? I think we've said this in variation a couple of times already. But with this analogy, maybe it's just our fault that we're watching the hands and not the cups.
Yeah, it is. They don't want us to look here, but we can't help but look here.
And then I think because we've earned the right to stop down on a lot more of our characters emotionally, intellectually, you're just naturally answering, I think, questions about them too.
Ariam, she's here. She has her story. She has some statues in her bedroom that indicates that she's spiritual. That's cool. Her favorite memory is of a photo of herself, which was interesting. In terms of, it's weird that the memory she has is of the photo of herself, not the memory of her in the first person.
Yeah, it's a still from a video that they recorded, because that's before she became augmented.
Here's a question. Why wasn't her backstory a short trek?
There's no reason why it's not.
I remember finding out about the short treks, and I think at the time I was like, oh, there must be a short... My brain logically went, oh, there must be a short trek about what happened to Ariam. Because I remember walking away from this episode kind of knowing what happened to Ariam, but not fully understanding it. And I thought, oh, well, there must be a short trek like the one with Tilly's best friend that adds some much-needed context to it. But there isn't. Why? I mean, like I said, I don't think that supplemental material like a short trek should add much needed context to the actual episodes, but wouldn't that have added so much more to this episode if there was an actual short trek dedicated to Ariam, so that way when this happens, it did hit more effectively because we at least had something centering around her? But instead we got one with Harry Mudd, who's never going to appear again anytime soon. Because he was fun.
Yeah, that's it.
No, seriously, what do you think? Do you think that they missed a trick here of...
Oh, absolutely. I think that it would have been great to have an episode of that and to deepen the tension between her and Michael, because I can't remember if Ariam was on the
No, that was Beep Boop. That was Beep Boop Lady.
Beep Boop Lady was on.
The only one that was on the Shenzhou was Saru and Detmer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but assumably she got her injuries and augmentation during the war.
I don't know. She said that she had some shuttle incident. I think it was after that photo was taken. I don't know.
Our shuttle back home went down.
What you're saying is, we are so fuzzy on the details. Wouldn't it have been great if they exploited that and actually given us some finer details in something like a short trek? It would make this episode hit better.
And to set up the history and tension that maybe she has with her augmentation and to explore the difficulties that people have when their normal changes forever.
I would have loved a short trek on Arium or an actual episode where she featured prominently as a character. I will pull again from the drudgery that is previous Star Treks. A character that I never cared about. There was a character when I watched TNG I never cared about until a singular episode, and then they became a character I deeply cared about. Miles O'Brien. Never cared about him. He was just a guy. He didn't even have a rank, really. And then he became transported this, and he bounced around all over the place. But then they gave him that episode in which we see him and Keiko, and they don't even know what kind of food that they eat usually, and they're differing and all that. And then the Cardassians come on the ship for the first ever time. And we find out that Miles O'Brien has this bigotry within him that he still hasn't resolved because of the Cardassian War, and he has this old captain. And that episode brought some new light to a character who, like Arium, has always been there, but we never really got to know much about. They may have had lines of dialogue, they may have shown minor moments of characterization, but they never really were a character. That episode gave something to Miles O'Brien to the point in which I understand why he was someone that they wanted to bring onto Deep Space Nine, a show about exploring the darker elements of characters and the darker elements of characters going through war. Because really, in the landscape of the characters in Star Trek, what they did with Miles O'Brien in that episode, showing his background when it came to war, made sense that you would want to grab that character and put him in that show. And that's how effective focusing your spotlight on a character can be. Arium, they never did that. And this episode is the one where it's like, and you should care about them ejecting Arium into space, and she played this game really well. Again, we never even saw her play the game. They just told us that she played it. I don't even know what the game is. That's how little they show us. They just say it.
Two things. One thing I want to just say without going into, because I want to explore the second one more. I had assumed that that was a game from a previous Star Trek that I just didn't remember. And
Maybe.
that was why they just keep on saying it without showing it. But it's still not a defense, but I just assumed that I was missing something, not that there was something that was... they deliberately just didn't.
Do you think it's that game that Riker and his dad plays where they get into like the full body armor and like hurt each other? I hope so.
And Bojitsu, the ultimate evolution in the martial arts.
I remember my early lessons.
You can never get used to the sightless factor, or to losing.
The issue is that in the episodes that we like, the mystery is solved, but the tensions continue. In this episode, the tension is resolved and the mystery continues.
Oh, it's a mystery box show.
Yeah, exactly. But I just wanted to encapsulate that because I feel like that embodies a lot of our problems with the show. Because I want things to build. And Discovery doesn't really do that. It says things and it moves on and it doesn't want you to look over here and you need to be interested in this thing, but not too interested because we can't have you paying too much attention because we need you to look over here and we're doing this now and we're going to refer back to that thing, but we're only going to point out how it's just like, well, you went through that thing. But you're not using that now, and then there's some dumbass explanation for why they've regressed on character growth yet again.
Yeah. There's nothing more to say about the whole Arium plot, right? All it serves is two functions: manipulation of the audience's emotions to feel something for a character who has never been a character, and the second being the continuing of the main plot. We've now introduced the antagonist. We've now introduced the antagonist motivation. We've now introduced the antagonist wants, needs, and desires. We've now introduced that. 9 episodes in. But we've introduced it. That's what it served. And when it came to that element there, it was served fine enough. The character stuff, piss poor. That stuff, serviceable. The Section 31 base, the fact that Control killed all these people and was luring Discovery here so that it could get Arium to do this, so that it can have that, and this, and this, and that. Okay. And Arium finding some minor free will and whatever. That's fine. But there's nothing within that element of the story to even discuss other than to say it's there. They set it up, and now we can move forward. There's no interesting wrinkles or details, because an AI that wants sentience and wants to destroy all of sentient life in return, wow, I haven't seen that before. However, I will say, I am a bit confused. Is Control sentient already if Control has wants, needs, desires, and motivation? Where do you fall on that when it comes to these type of deals? Because that's always like the debate made when it comes to something like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Hal, right? Hal is a cold, controlling machine, but he has wants, needs, and desires, and he doesn't want to die. Same with Star Trek in general. When it comes to holograms, you have Moriarty. When Moriarty is alive, he has an understanding of his surroundings, and he literally says, I'm sentient and stuff like that. Yet Star Trek in the past, with him, for example, still deny that. Where do you come on that, and how do you feel about it when it comes to Control at the moment? Because Control wants this data so that it can evolve, but the fact that it wants things and desires things and has a yearning for things already indicates, to me at least, that it has some level of sentience to it. But what do you think?
How about we ask the expert, Maddox?
Oh, you mean the character from Star Trek Picard, Bruce Maddox? I love that character from Star Trek Picard. The guy, yeah, him, the guy who had a planet of androids. Yeah, that guy.
So in a previous interaction with Picard in the episode entitled Measure of a Man.
I don't remember that one in Star Trek Picard. I don't remember that episode.
No, I'm referring to TNG, sorry.
I don't remember
that older version of Picard where he's all boring and cranky.
Is that the Picard who does does he at least do the face palms?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that guy. I've never watched the show, but I love Patrick Stewart. He's the guy that does the voice on the Family Guy, right?
And he's the voice of Poop in the Emoji movie.
I love feeling feelings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in this episode, they're trying to prove whether Data, the android on the ship, is sentient or not, and is property of Starfleet or not. So the 3 major categories that Maddox states as being required for sentience is intelligence, self-awareness, and consciousness. Which you are kind of like our discussion is skirting around that idea, right?
And in that episode, they make the case that Data has some of these things, but not all of these things. They think that he may have this, but not this, and it's a giant debate.
Yeah, because Control appears to be self-aware.
Yes.
It is aware of itself and its interactions with others.
Yes, and it has wants.
And it has wants, needs, and desires. So, tick.
It's intelligent. It's literally an intelligence.
Yes. And it has a broad intelligence, and it is working on acquiring new knowledge and understanding the world and growing.
Mm-hmm.
So consciousness is the thing that it is missing. And I think that is what the data is going to give control, is consciousness.
Right.
And that 25% gives it enough consciousness to then take over Leland. That's where I end up on it, is that it's almost there.
But it needs more.
It needs more information. It's on that step just before, and then if it gains consciousness, that's when it will destroy the universe.
Yeah, and again, consciousness, it's that thing they debate in the episode, what defines that. I know what I am, therefore I have consciousness, right? I have self-awareness, I have this, but that's the debate of that episode, and you could make the debate that it already has that right now at this point via the things it's already done and the things it will go on to do before it even gets close to having the data. It even has a personality once it takes over Leland, but that's the thing that's the most interesting to talk about when it comes to the actual control plotline within this episode, is because there's nothing else to talk about. And that's a thing that Star Trek has always tackled and wrestled with.
Chess.
No, I'm talking about. We'll talk about that storyline, but I mean with the Arium storyline, with the Arium
storyline. Sorry, I thought you meant more broadly.
No.
You meant in general.
With
the episode.
This storyline in the Arium, there's only two parts: the character stuff and the control stuff. And the control stuff, that's the only interesting thing, and it's an idea that we've seen explored in a multitude within Star Trek. You have a Measure of Man, you have the Moriarty episodes, you have any episode with a Doctor in Voyager, you have these episodes in DS9. You have them all over the place, and there's always different variants. Strains of, is it alive, is it not, who knows? And
because
at the
there's
point,
no single answer to the question of what makes sentience. Yes, meet these three criteria, but the way that you meet those three criteria are infinitely diverse.
And Star Trek Picard goes on to explore that as well even further. So when we trip up this moment and they say this AI wants things to make it have the ability to want things more, I just go, okay. It sounds like it's already pretty perfect. It can already wipe out everyone at the moment, but I guess it needs the data so it can do it more efficiently.
It wants to think. It wants to evolve. The data's like a roadmap to control to become fully conscious. But it does.
It can destroy all other sentient life in the galaxy.
Last thing I want to touch upon with that storyline beats, there's another detail that they don't want you to think about properly because they just throw information at you. Here's information, here's information, here's information, here's information. They introduce that one of the top-ranking admirals in Starfleet is a logic extremist, which has been set up before and has been set up as
one of the admirals in charge of Section 31, which I still don't quite understand
how Section 31 works. If like they aren't a part of the Starfleet yet, they are, but they operate outside.
3 or 4 admirals that we see when chatting with Leland and Georgiou.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they were the admirals like in charge of Section 31. I didn't think that it would work like that because
Section 31 have court-martials, so I guess that's how it works.
Whatever.
So we've seen the logic extremists be set up before within Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. And here they have, as a matter of fact, one of the admirals within Starfleet, one of the high-ranking members, is a well-known, certified logic extremist, which was set up in the previous season as something that was illegal. It was basically terrorism, and the ones who were logic extremists were hiding the fact that they were logic extremists until they had to reveal it. It wasn't as if the ones who were logic extremists in the Vulcan society were walking around openly saying, "Hello, I'm a logic extremist senator." They weren't walking around as if, "Hello, I am a member of the
Starfleet, not part of the Vulcan Academy, so she can clearly just be open with her beliefs." That, or
she's an open terrorist.
Maybe Cornwell was just being a little bit loose with her language.
Tough shit if she was loose with her language. It's the language that they used in the show, and that's what I'm saying. They throw that detail at you, and they don't want you to think about it. They don't want you to think about, wait, so if she's a logic extremist, i.e. a terrorist, how's she an acting member of the Starfleet at all? And how is she an admiral? And how does she have this? They have serious ramifications when they do these type of things in other shows. Deep Space Nine constantly references the fact that Major Kira was a terrorist herself, and that has ramifications within her story. From other characters' interactions with her, from limitations of power, or bonuses in power. There's actual nuances introducing that. Here, it's just introduced so that you know that she's a bad Vulcan. Because there's no such thing as bad Vulcans unless you're a logic extremist, it seems like. Because if you're Sarek, someone who in this show was totally down with genocide, you're still a good guy. You can't just be a bad guy Vulcan who, being a bad guy Vulcan is just being an asshole like we've seen with other Vulcans in the past. You need to be a logic extremist, and that means i.e. evil. Even though the details contradict everything, don't think about it. We've just thrown that information by you. We don't have enough time for you to let you think about it, because if you did, it doesn't make any sense. How's she an admiral? Even in Star Trek Picard, they at least admitted that the evil Commodore chick was half Romulan, so that allowed her to be an evil Vulcan. In this, they just need you to buy that she's an evil Vulcan because she's a well-known logic extremist. Makes no sense. But again, they don't want you to think about it.
Admiral Patar. She's a logic extremist. Frankly, I find her fanaticism worrying.
I've got a question for you, and this is a genuine one, and I want a serious answer. In the Spock-Michael storyline, she whips out the chessboard, the chess set, and all that, and they have the little back and forth about, I'm not going to play chess against you, and this, and this, and it's supposed to be somewhat cute, and Michael says, you're just afraid you're going to lose. Yes. And they have the music, which doesn't play as comedy music, it plays as dramatic music, and then Spock says some line about, like, you know, it's time to play chess, or whatever, and it's like the hard cut to where the ad break is, as if that is the sting of the scene.
Yes.
Was that supposed to be a funny end capper to the scene, or was it not?
Yes, I believe that it was meant to be amusing. It was meant to be them sparring as siblings.
But that specific line to end off the scene, was that supposed to be like the comedic capper?
Yeah.
Was it?
No.
Why?
Because it wasn't funny.
Why?
Because typically a joke will have a set-off and a payoff, and the payoff subverts your expectations in some manner.
Yep.
And it does not subvert your expectations in any manner, because you know from the beginning that Michael is going to win the argument and they are going to play chess, not only because it serves the purpose within the scene of Michael being right, but because it is logical for the writers to also want them to play chess so that they have something to do while they have these conversations about more serious topics.
Now, I'll be the devil's advocate and say, maybe you're overthinking it, and it's just funny because Spock says in a very stern, serious voice, with a dramatic serious, that we're going to play chess, which is inherently a silly kind of sentence to have with the juxtaposition of it being played so straight. You could say the humor comes from that they're playing into the melodramatic nature of the show, but having a silly line be said. My problem is,
a silly line coming from a serious character often makes the line funny rather than serious or silly.
My problem is the two actors in the scene as these characters are not comedically well performed. That's my issue. Is Ethan Peck as Spock being funny is nowhere close to being as funny as Leonard Nimoy as Spock being funny for a start. But hey, let's not compare the two, yet it's completely fair to compare the two, even though the whole scene makes a whole point of, you don't know me, I'm a different guy. I get it, writers. You're telling us, the audience, not to... They literally say the word judge like 14 times.
Yes.
You're telling us, the audience, not to judge your interpretation of Spock because it's a different Spock. I know, but tough shit. Tough shit. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it be, hey, don't judge us. This isn't the Spock you know. And also be saying, congratulate us for referencing the Spock you know. You can't have it fucking both ways. I'm sorry. And the way that you guys as writers are trying to make it that you wanted to have both ways, I'm not buying into that bullshit. But Ethan Peck as Spock, he doesn't have the comedic range as Spock to do it. I've seen Ethan Peck play comedy before, so I know he has comedic range, but as Spock, he lacks the comedic nuance, especially as a Vulcan. Leonard Nimoy and Tim Russ know how to play comedy while still being Vulcan. Ethan Peck didn't, because all he did in the scene was talk in a gruff voice throughout the whole scene. And thus it undercuts, to me, the comedy to the point in which I have to ask you, was that supposed to be funny? Indicating that it was so unfunny to me to the point in which I didn't recognize it as it being funny.
But you found the scene with the banter and engineering with Stamets cutting them hilarious, right? Because that was also meant to be funny.
Okay, you're being facetious there. Obviously, the scene wasn't funny. But what made it more tolerable and more identifiable as comedy is Anthony Rapp as Paul Stamets is clearly more comedically tuned. I don't think Anthony Rapp...
louder.
I don't think Anthony Rapp is the funniest guy, and I don't think he's a great comedic actor. I'm not a big fan of his regular acting either. I think he's far more of a song and dance type of guy. But he has a clearer identifier that he's trying to be funny, and I can identify with it more. I mean, he wiggles his eyebrows. That's how he's thinking he's being funny, so I can recognize it. But so it works more effectively because it's something I do recognize as an attempt at comedy. While Ethan Peck as Spock, I was just like, oh, he sounds angry all the time. I mean, I did laugh, though, at the chess scene. I laughed hysterically when Spock dramatically punches the chess set.
Laughing at it is right. You're not...
It's embarrassing. It was This is Spock, by the way.
Embarrassing is a great word for that.
This is Spock. This is Spock. I'm sorry to do it, but that's
liking feelings now too.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. This is supposed to be Mr. Spock, by the way. This is Star Trek Into Darkness, Mr. Spock, where Spock punches the fuck out of Khan while screaming and yelling. At least in that movie it made more sense because he was upset that his best friend died. In this, he's being confronted by a game of chess, and he has a hissy fit that a 6-year-old would have. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And again, the episode is literally saying, hey, don't judge. This isn't the Spock you know. And this Spock's emotionally charged because of Michael. But at the same time, the show is constantly waving its hand in your face going, love us because this is Spock. So there's a disconnect majorly for me in which I'm supposed to detach myself from this being Mr. Spock from Star Trek, but also recognize 100% that this is Mr. Spock from Star Trek. And when a moment like this happens, when he punches a chess set...
This ain't your dad's Star Trek.
It's funny to me, but also pathetic.
What I feel is that failure is liberating. And for the first time, I enjoy expressing emotion.
Emotions are alien to me. I'm a scientist.
Well, I would like to add that Spock gives Stamets the emotional insight into his relationship with Hugh.
A character Spock's never met.
Yeah.
We have not seen him even view Hugh before.
But I guess that leads more into the Huda.
Huda. That's the Huda. We've already finished it. Spock gives Paul the push that Hugh is not rejecting him, but he's rejecting himself.
The exposition that he's moved out of his quarters,
which was already
And it
set
was
up.
just, I don't know. He doesn't know how he feels about himself.
I.e., that's how I feel. I don't know how to feel about myself. I know what I know.
I know how he's feeling.
And hence I can identify it and tell you. That would be interesting if Spock and Hugh have ever interacted. And again, welcome back to season 1 territory, guys, in which we're just being told things about Hugh. We're not actually being shown the things again. He's not even in the episode.
No, Hugh, insight.
It's just hilarious to think.
And no insights about Hugh.
No. It's hilarious to think two things when you watch an episode like this. One, that Hugh died at one point. It's really funny to remember that.
He's dealing with the ramifications currently, Ryan. We can't forget.
Yeah. But then the other
Better
thing,
it actually pointed it out.
But then the other thing that's really funny to remember is that he's alive again. There's just such a weird disconnect of those two factors when I watch an episode like this. Like, it's really funny to remember, oh yeah, Hugh died. And then it's also really funny to remember, oh yeah, Hugh's alive. Like, not in that scene where they're talking about it, but like in any other scene, I'm remembering, oh yeah, they brought Hugh back. Where is he? What would you rate this episode, Rachel? A yum or a yum yum?
Yeah.
When was the last time we gave an episode a yum yum? Because I'm giving it a yum as well.
I think it's been a while on the main feed.
It's been a while, huh? Oh boy. Well, Rachel, I am excited to hear what the next episode is that we will be discussing. Will it be a Harry Mudd one again? I don't think so. Will it be a musical episode finally? Will Ash Tyler be in it again? Oh, how I miss Ash. And I hope Giorgio's there too to give some witty one-liners about how she's a fucking fascist.
Well, Hugh is in the thumbnails for this.
Oh my god, I didn't even think to ask, will Hugh be in it?
But
I actually really didn't think about after just having gotten a diatribe about Hugh, I literally didn't even think about asking, oh, will Hugh be in the next episode? Because I just assumed he might not be.
Oh, but the poster image is of Ash and Michael.
Yes!
So we are moving on to episode 10.
Wow.
I was about to say titular episode of the season, because it kind of is, but that makes zero sense. It's called The Red Angel. Burnham is stunned when she learns her ties to Section 31 run deeper than she ever fathomed.
Is that it?
No. Armed with the identity of the Red Angel, the USS Discovery goes to work on its most critical mission to date.
Phew! Whoa, boy, I was really worried about that one. Well, get ready for that episode next time, people. It is going to be filled to the brim with yum yum. Maybe too much yum yum energy for us to handle all by ourselves. Who knows? Rachel, where can the people find us on the internet?
Search YumYumPod on various social medias, or just take a look in that description where it gives you those neat little hyperlinks. So all you have to do is click, and if you want to shoot us an email, do so in the direction of yumyumpod@gmail.com. And check out our Patreon if you want to hear more from us and more about other Star Trek and us maybe
talking about other pieces of media, whether they be other TV shows, some games we're playing, and so on.
Some things we might even like. Who knows?
God forbid. Well, Rachel, we've gone on an emotional ride, but I have to say that I am very glad that this episode reminded us, the audience, of what a Vulcan nerve pinch is. And that it's not fatal, but it does hurt a lot.